Hey everybody, this is Dream, and today we have an 8-game Major League Baseball slate that starts at 7 o'clock. It's a pretty awesome slate. It's a lot better than a lot of the slates we've had lately, so I do like it a lot. We do have one weather concern. The Minnesota-St. Louis game is in trouble there. It should start, but it's possible that it doesn't go full completion, so do keep that in mind if you do choose to use some players from those teams. With that said, we'll get some information from that closer to lock as well, but for now, we're just going to have to be a little bit concerned about that particular game. Then let's go ahead and get into the slate, though. Before I get started, can you guys smash that like and subscribe button? Also, check out the memberships on YouTube. That really helps the channel a lot. Really do appreciate all the guys that have joined that, so thanks again. Then let's go ahead and get into the slate. We'll start with Garrett Cole for the Yankees. He is facing Tampa Bay, and 2 of his 3 worst games of the year have come against Tampa Bay. Though that was earlier in the year, Tampa Bay is not hitting the ball as well lately. They're still dangerous, though, and he's had 4 straight games over 20 fantasy points, and 6 of the last 8 over 20 fantasy points. He also has a decent strikeout rate, which helps as well. So I do think he's a viable option, but he does carry a little bit of risk today. Then we'll look at Joe Ryan for Minnesota. Now, he is facing St. Louis, and he's been inconsistent this season. He's given up a lot of earned runs, including 16 in the last 4 games. He's also getting a lot of strikeouts, so he's high risk, high reward. He definitely has the potential to have a good game, but he's probably a little bit overpriced for what he's doing lately, and he's probably a little bit difficult to roster as a result. Then we're going to look at Logan Webb for San Francisco. He is facing Arizona. His K rate has been inconsistent throughout the year, but when it's down, he does struggle to score a good amount of fantasy points. He's faced Arizona twice this season and scored 19 to 15 fantasy points in those 2 games. He's not a great option, but he is an okay option. He does feel a little risky on the slate, though. Then we'll look at Senga for the Mets. Now, he draws an interesting situation here against Kansas City, and while he has been inconsistent throughout the year, he does draw a good upside in certain situations, and he has pitched pretty well against weaker teams. He's also pitched very well against good teams sometimes, so he's been all over the place fantasy-wise. But he does have a 15 to 25 point range in this game, and if he can get the strikeouts, he can definitely pay off here, and Kansas City is one of the worst teams in baseball now, so he definitely has some high-end upside. Then we'll look at McClanahan for Tampa Bay. He has 4 games under 12 fantasy points the past 5, and his K rate is lower than those above him, though his one bad game earlier in the year was versus the Yankees as well, and Judge is back, but he does have some upside as the Yankees do strike out a lot. He does have some potential, but he does feel high risk, high reward as he's not pitching well lately. He's giving up a lot of earned runs, but he does have some potential here. And then we're going to look at Dylan Case for his Chicago White Sox. Now, he didn't get traded like a lot of people thought he would, and he's been over 20 fantasy points in 6 of the last 9 games, including a game versus Texas, who he's facing today. That said, this is a tough matchup. The K rate could push him over the hump here, but it is really risky, and I do like some Texas players in my write-up. I do think he's got some upside here, but it's very difficult for me to feel like he's got a good chance of getting a win, which really hampers his fantasy point potential. Kikuchi for Toronto, Gonsolin for the Dodgers, and Dane Dunning for Texas all have some upside as well today, but they are also very risky, but they are a lot cheaper. Moving into our catchers here, we're going to start with Will Smith for the Dodgers. Now, he hasn't hit the ball well lately, but he does draw home run potential in this game. While he is super expensive, he does draw a favorable matchup against pitcher, and maybe he can get out of a slump today. But he hasn't hit the ball well very much recently, as he's only hit for 211 over the last 10 games he's played. Then we'll look at Gomez for the Cubbies. Jan has been extremely good recently. He's had a 368 average over the last 10 games. He also draws some nice home run metrics for this game, so I do like his upside here. He doesn't need the home runs, though. He's just hitting the ball well. And so if he does draw the start today, then he'll be a top-tier option on the slate. Francisco Alvarez is also in play here, and he has also hit the ball very well lately. Sorry, I couldn't find him. Though a little bit inconsistent, he does have home run potential, as that's pretty much what he does. He's had 2 home runs in the last 2 games, and he's got another great matchup here to potentially do it again, and so I really do like him a lot here. Moving into first baseman, we're going to start with Pete Alonso, who is a core play today. He draws really good metrics. He is really hitting the ball well. He's had 5 home runs over the last 10 games. He was in a slump for a while, but he seems like he's out of it now. The batting average has ramped up. He's everything's going in his direction. So I really like him as a core play and a home run upside guy today. Then we'll look at Vlad Jr., who is also playing a little bit better. He has been inconsistent throughout the year, and he's been slumpy lately. But he's starting to hit the ball better. A couple games ago, he's had a couple multi-hit games, so he's also had a lot of games where he's just hitting straight at guys and not really scoring too much fantasy points. Though he is getting walked more as the season progresses, he still has the home run potential here. Then we'll look at Ryan Mountcastle for Baltimore. Now, he has hit the ball extremely well lately with a 400 batting average over the last 10 games. He's really starting to see the ball well. He's also have some home run upside. He's getting on base in lots of different ways, though, and scoring fantasy points in lots of different ways. So he doesn't need a home run necessarily. And he's also nice and cheap, which definitely gives him some upside, gives him some added benefit here. Nathaniel Lowe for Texas is in play. Now, he does face a tough matchup in Still in Case, but he has hit the ball extremely well with a 344 average over the last 10. He's also averaging over 10 fantasy points a game. He has some home run potential as well, though he doesn't necessarily need it, as he's had hits in most games with a couple exceptions recently, but he has hit the ball extremely well this season, so I really like his upside. You can also consider Cody Bellinger and Lamont Wade Jr. at this position as well. Moving to second base, obviously Mookie Betts is a top-tier option, though he has been inconsistent lately. He has only had one home run last 10 games. He does draw home run potential in this one, especially in a tough matchup, and he did manage a home run yesterday as well, so look for him to get on a home run streak here against the Oakland A's, which is definitely possible in this particular situation. Then we'll look at Matt McLain for the Cincinnati Reds. Now, he's hitting pretty good lately. He's a decent home run threat some of the time, and he does draw good metrics for this game. I do like his upside here, especially against the Cubs, who he's absolutely crushed this season. Though some of those games have been at home, he does have a couple good games here on the road as well against them. So I do like his upside, and he definitely flashes really good metrics for this game against Smiley, who's been really inconsistent. Nico Hoerner is also in play for the Cubs. Conversely, against the Reds, he's hit the ball very well lately with a 372 batting average. I really like his upside. He's also nice and cheap today. I mean, not super nice and cheap, but he's $4,600, and he's getting a lot of upside when he has big games. So, especially when he has multi-hit games, he really tends to pay off a lot fantasy-wise, and that's what we're looking for today from him. Moving to third base, we'll look at Elly De La Cruz. Now, Cruz has been very inconsistent as a batter, as you can tell. He has some big games, and then he just has some games where he strikes out a bunch. But that's going to come and go, especially with a young player like him. But he has good home run potential. He has good stolen base potential, even though he hasn't had a stolen base in a few games here, which is kind of surprising considering how much he was stealing the base early on. But he does have all that potential, though his price is fairly expensive, so it's going to be hard to roster him here, but he is in play on this one. Spencer Steer is also in play for Cincinnati. He's hitting the ball very well lately, though he doesn't have as much home run upside as some of the other guys. He does draw good metrics, and he is hitting the ball pretty well, and so he has the potential for a pretty solid game, and he's priced pretty fairly as well. Another option here is Mancota for the Chicago White Sox. He has been inconsistent throughout the year. He hasn't played a ton, but he does draw good metrics for this game, and he's had hits in quite a few games in a row, so I do think he's have some upside. He does feel high risk, high reward. He is this very contrarian option. Unfortunately, there's not a ton of value plays on the slate for this position, so he's somebody I like, though, for some low-end upside. You could also consider Jeimer Candelario and Chris Taylor at this position as well. Maybe into our shortstops. Obviously, we talked about Matt McLain before, but Lindor for the Mets is also in play. He's hit the ball really well lately with the 300 batting average. He's also had 2 home runs the last 10 games, and he can get some home runs and stolen bases as well, which give him some upside here. Though he is fairly expensive and a little bit hard to roster. Meanwhile, I really like Ahmad Rosario today. He's come into the Dodgers, and he's had one really big game, and then he's had a couple inconsistent games, but one game he didn't start. He only batted one time, and then yesterday against Oakland he went 0 for 4, but he did get walked, and he has some good potential. He's hitting the ball pretty solidly throughout the season, and he's been hitting the ball better lately, and he seems like he fits in well with the Dodgers, so I think he's a great option on the slate. Then we'll look at Dansby Swanson for the Cubs. Now, he has some good upside here. He's hit the ball very well recently with 5 home runs in the last 10, and as long as he's hitting the ball like that, then he's hard to ignore. He's managed to score fantasy points a lot, which is one of the reasons why when he was with Atlanta, a lot of Atlanta fans loved him, because he hits the ball well pretty good. And he's had some really big games against the Cincinnati Reds this season as well. So I really like his upside. He's scoring a lot of fantasy points and he draws good metrics here. You could also consider Bobby Witt Jr. and Ella De La Cruz at shortstop position as well. Maybe in the outfielders, you can also start with Mookie Betts here, but Aaron Judge is also in play for the Yankees. He has come back from his injuries, and he has had one home run in the first few games back. Now, he has only started 2 games since being back, so, or sorry, he has started 3 games since he's been back, but he has good metrics here, though he's getting walked a lot, which is kind of harming his potential for home runs. But he does draw some good metrics, and he should be able to score some fantasy points one way or the other, though you do need him to hit a home run to really pay off here. If Brandon Nemo does play today, which I don't know that he will, he did get scratched yesterday, so let's wait. We'll have to wait and see. But he has hit the ball pretty inconsistent throughout the year. That said, he has shown some home run upside recently, and he does have some good hitting most of the time. And if he can get back on track, which he's hit the ball okay recently, then he has some upside. Though he's high risk, especially with injury potential. Then we'll look at Benintendi for the Chicago White Sox. Now, he's been very inconsistent throughout the year, but he does draw good metrics in this matchup against Dunning, and I do like his potential, but he is high risk, high reward on this situation, borderline Hail Mary option. Then we'll look at Starling Marte for the Mets. It looks like he'll be back today from his injuries, so we'll have to wait and see. He had migraines. We'll have to make sure that he is going to play today, but he hasn't played in almost half a month. So, but before then, he was hitting the ball decently well, and he's had some big games. He does draw some upside in this matchup, and so I do like him as a potential guy, though you do want to make sure he's playing. Anthony Santander has been inconsistent throughout the year, but he does draw home run potential, and in certain situations, he really does hit the ball pretty well, and he's been hitting better the last 5 games. I do like his home run upside in this one as well. Then we'll look at Eloy Jimenez for the White Sox. Now, he has hit the ball extremely well with a 368 average over the last 10 games, and that's pretty much why I want to utilize him, as he's not striking out a ton, which is nice. He also has good metrics against Texas, so I do think he's got some viability here. He has home run upside as well, but I'm not really stretching for the home run. I'm just looking for him to get some hits and pay off from a fantasy perspective. Cody Bellinger for the Cubs is also in play. He's been extremely good lately. Not as good as some of the other batters, but he's been he does have home run upside, and when he hits a home run, he definitely pays off, but he's having trouble paying off on the other games. However, he is getting hits, so it's just a matter of time before he has another big game. Byron Buxton for Minnesota is also in play. He's been somewhat inconsistent lately. His batting average has been bad throughout the season, though he's hitting a little bit better. He has a home run or best kind of play today, though he's had 5 straight games with hits. I think it's 5 game straights with hits. And he does draw the good home run upside, though, as well, though his price is fairly expensive. Jock Peterson for San Francisco was in play. He's hit the ball really well, and of course he ended up getting traded like some people thought he might, but he does draw good metrics here, and he has a good situation against a young pitcher who's had a high ERA in the minors, so I do think he's got some good metrics for this game, and he's probably one of my favorite players from San Francisco on the slate. You could also put Spencer Steer out here in the outfield, which is nice as well, and then Ian Happ for the Cubs, as he has hit the ball very well recently for him, as he's been inconsistent throughout the season, but he's drawn some good metrics here, and the Cubs exploded offensively yesterday. I look for them to have a similar type of situation again today. So with that said, guys, thank you for liking, commenting, subscribing. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them below, and have a nice day, guys.